I think basically we've been set back a few years. The problems were there way longer, right? I think regulators are definitely needed. The next thing that all regulators are going to be very interested on is how account balances. With FTX going down, we'll see cascading effects.
CZ is the CEO of Binance and the man that kicked off the crash of the FTX after he sold all of his $500 million worth of FTX's FTT token. In this highlight, CZ reveals exactly how he uncovered FTX was a scam and proposes new regulations that would prevent another exchange collapse.
What's going on in the industry today? Because in my mind, it feels like the 2008 great financial crisis.
I think that's probably an accurate analogy. I think we've just seen another very big player going down, seeing $30–40 billion of value that's in FTX valuation that was before that they raised that, plus quite a few $billions of user funds that's kind of gone. So with this type of events happening, it's devastating for the industry. A lot of consumer confidence is shaken, and I think basically we've been set back a few years. Regulators rightfully will scrutinize this industry much harder, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. I think now, before the regulations are much more focused on KYC and AML, I've always been saying, look, you got to focus on the exchange operations, business models, proof of reserves, where are the user funds. So I think we'll come into a lot more scrutiny on those fronts. But actually, that's good for the industry.
So, you know what happened with FTX?
Yeah, so I think the last 3 days is just a revelation of problems. The problems were there way longer, right? So like this problem wasn't created in the last 3 days. So basically, we have an exchange, FTX is misappropriating user funds. They were taking user funds to do other things. I think the trigger was like a week ago, there was a CoinDesk article. And then my team says, well, hey, CZ, we still have a lot of FTT coins. Like what? Should we sell it? Sure, why not? So the next day, there was a big transaction reported by Where Alerts saying that like $580 million worth of FTT was transferred to Binance.com. And my team said, CZ, this is our transfer. It's like, well, really, you sure? Said, yeah, he's sure. And should we be, there was discussions in the community, and should we be transparent about it? It's like, yeah, sure, we should be transparent about it. And then he said, CZ, you should write a tweet, because we don't, like what we'll call the interns, our PR team says, we don't really know how to write this particular one. This is quite sensitive. So I was actually just going out to meet two of my friends who actually also came to Indonesia now. I was on my way out to meet with them, and then so I just wrote a tweet in a few minutes. But I wanted to explain like how do we have this much, right? So we can't just have $580 million worth of FTT all of a sudden. We got it. We didn't buy it from secondary markets. We got it as a transaction of our exit. Equity exit out of FTX a year and a half ago, which was publicly reported. I said that, and then I didn't know my phone will blow up like over the rest of the evening. So, and I also didn't know, like, no, the second day I said, look, I didn't know this is the, I think the word we used was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's before Sam, SBF called me 24 hours later. I thought it was just causing a lot of waves in the Twitter, in the community. 24 hours later, Sam calls me and says, hey, CZ, can we talk? Okay. And then he says, well, I thought he was going to do an OTC deal, right? I thought he was going to ask, hey, CZ, why don't we do an OTC deal? Then we can put all the negative comments out, then confidence is restored. I thought he wanted to do that. But instead, he just said, look, we have much bigger troubles. I said, look, we don't want users to be hurt, and we want to protect the users. So the deal, to be honest, I can't comment on any specifics on the deals, but from our perspective, the deal did not make sense from a number of fronts. From a financial perspective, is a big hole. From new users, FTX, we have very high overlap. We cover all the regions they cover, and they have much less users than us. From a technology or product perspective, I think we have a superior product. They don't have anything that we don't have. So our original intention was to let's save the users. But then the news of misappropriating user funds, and especially US regulatory agencies' investigations, we're like, okay, we can't touch that anymore. So, and then we said, look, and then as soon as I understood we couldn't touch it anymore, I said, let's make that announcement as quickly as possible.
How should you go about this to bring back trust into the industry?
So as one of the largest players in the industry, we have to lead by example. So I think the number one thing we have to do is be much, much more transparent. We also want to educate regulators all around the world. How do you do audits on crypto exchanges? Not just KYC, ML, which is important, but how do you check the cold wallets? How do you do user balance reconciliations? How do you check transaction logs? How do you use on-chain monitoring tools to do this? So all of these things we do internally.
So regulators, good or bad, needed or not needed, and how should it play a role?
Yeah, I think there's two topics there. Number one is I think regulators are definitely needed. I don't think our society is advanced enough to live in a world without rules. But doesn't mean all the rules are good. It doesn't mean all the rules are bad. The rules need to be sensible. If the rule says, hey, we're just going to ban crypto altogether in Indonesia, that's one type of rule. I think that's obviously going to be bad. If it's anything goes, that's also not so good in general. There will be a lot of scammers, a lot of guys doing business in a bad way and cause a lot of damage. So we need to find the balance. So it's not an easy task. The tools become easier to use while being very secure. More and more people will shift to that. But today, if you look at the real situation today, the majority of people would be much more comfortable using an email, password, and call customer support if they forget it.
What stage you think regulators should play a role now? For example, you said, okay, no longer about KYC, Pandu, no longer about just know your customer and AML. What else should they be involved in your view?
Oh, I think obviously, just as things playing out, the next thing that all regulators are going to be very interested on is how account balances, right? So reserves. Going forward, there's still many other things like wallet security. How do you secure how do you do security as a large exchange? How do you handle customer disputes? Do you allow ICOs or not in your country? There's a lot of things to decide. So, but I think the next focus is definitely on user asset security.
What do you see the trend in 2023 top of mind for you and for the crypto industry?
I'm not very good at predicting trends. Looking forward is very hard to predict. So we just have to wait and see. We need to wait to see what's taking off and then try to help it.
In your view, in your industry, it seems as consolidation is the big play. Is that true, or is it something else going on?
I think today is definitely consolidation, especially given that FTX just went down. So they're like the fourth or fifth largest exchange in the world. So now they're gone. So now there's definitely consolidation. In a bear market, we see severe consolidations, and also with FTX going down, we'll see cascading effects, right? So I think BlockFi is now bankrupt again. I think Voyager deal is going to be, I don't know what's going to happen there. FTX won the bid for $1.4 billion, but obviously they won't have the money to pay for that. So they will probably have a second hit. A few other projects are going to be in similar situations. I think it will take a couple of weeks for most of them to come out. Right now, there's definitely consolidation.
Will you see innovation slow down this next couple of months? And is people simply just becoming risk-averse in the industry?
I think innovation is hard to measure that way. I think most of the builders are still building. In fact, some of the smaller exchanges might see this as an opportunity because now there's one less, bigger player up there. There may actually be more people wanting to start exchanges. I think the builders were building projects. I think Solana ecosystem is quite negatively affected. So I think many of those developers might want to migrate to other blockchains, et cetera, or looking at different options. BNB chain is one option. There's many other blockchains in the ecosystem. And even just Solana, we would love to help them. The builders will continue to build, but it's especially for those close to the FTX ecosystem, they will be more negatively affected. There will also be less money coming in, or at least slower, short-term, coming in slower. But the technology is not going away. Internet is not going away, blockchain is not going away. Decentralized industry, when one player goes down, it causes a lot of pain, but other players will come in very quickly and feel it. And those new players that feel it will be stronger ones, right? So there'll be more competition. So the market takes care, the market will heal. The market will heal itself.
And in your view today, just short-term, being pragmatic, do any of your stakeholders really understand what's going on in the crypto? And I mean stakeholders, regulators, auditors, policymakers, right? State leaders, do they really understand? I mean, if you saw 0 to 10, what level of knowledge do you think they know?
Even if we take an average of the G20 countries, the understanding of crypto among the regulatory bodies are still relatively primitive. So many of them are learning this from reading online, etc. Many of them don't hold crypto yet. Many of them are still have a theoretical understanding of it. But the people who really understand. So the regulators in Dubai, they really understand the technology. In France, they really understand.
If you enjoyed that video, click here to watch real estate expert Ken McElroy and George Gammon reveal why the Fed is making this housing crash way worse than it ever should have been.